I have 110% complete trust in God, and I'm going to tell you how I got there. This past year, I went through lots of challenges, and I found myself really struggling to trust God. Like, how is God good if this bad thing is happening, and then that bad thing is happening, and then another bad thing is happening, and then right when I am trying to catch a break, something else happens, and I found myself one day just really letting it all out and being like, you know what, I I don't trust you, God. I just don't trust you, because all of these things are happening, and I can't see anything good that can come from this. Like, I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. And ironically, it was because of that spot of not trusting God that I can honestly say today that He has my complete trust. And even when I don't understand things, even if things seem to be going awry, like, I have 110% complete trust in God, and I'm going to tell you how I got there. Throughout this past year, things would pop up. Some were small inconveniences, some were really big things, some were somewhere in the middle, but after every single one, God somehow carried me through. And not that everything went perfectly, or not that everything happened exactly the way I wanted it to, but every single time something popped up, whether small, medium, or big, or astronomical, He was there to carry me through. And this was the first time in my life where I was tired of going through something, having God deliver me, and then me going right back to not trusting Him again. Like, that was a huge cycle for me. I would go through something, ask God for help, He'd deliver me, and then when the next challenge came, like, I was back to square one, being like, oh my gosh, God, like crying again, as if I didn't know that He would get me through. And so I made a decision as I was going through these different challenges this past year. I was like, you know what? I want this to be the time where I trust in God completely. Like before, and everything that I was worried about before, that He obviously carried me through, I would be in a panic. I would be nervous. I would be worried. I wouldn't have peace. Like, all the joy that I look back on my life, and all the joy that I could have had if I just trusted in God, like, I just let it go down the drain because I was so worried about things that He eventually worked out. So in the middle of this past year, I was like, you know what? I want this to be the time where I just put my complete trust in God. And so I did. But here's the kicker. In order to trust God, you have to be put in a situation where you have to trust God. So that means you have to be put in a situation that is unfavorable, that you're not going to like, so that your faith can be tested, and so that you can learn to trust God. So how it happened for me was, life happens, and anytime something, seemingly bad happened, instead of, I was going to say, instead of worrying, I trusted God. No, I would worry. I would pray as the last resort. And sometimes I wouldn't even pray. Sometimes I would just worry, like I did for my entire life. But like always, I saw that God brought me through. And so that consistently happened throughout this past year. Things would happen, I would freak out, He would rescue me. And then I thought about it, and I was like, the next time something pops up, Faith, just don't worry. Like, do what you can to, as so far it's in your will to, fix something, but after it's out of your control, leave it in God's hands. And I did that. And little by little, I was like, wow. I saw him putting the pieces of the things in my life together that I couldn't have done for myself. And little by little, I saw how faithful God was, and I was able to trust him. And I know, maybe if you're not Christian or religious, you may be like, how do you know that God did this? And here's the best way I can explain it. God causes the sun to rise every single morning. No matter how bad the world is, or how people may do the wrong things, or sometimes I'm like, I know I probably, don't please God all the time, but every single morning without fail, we can count on the fact the sun is going to rise and the sun is going to set every night. And I was like, even though my, circumstances may not be the best at the moment, I trust in a God who lets the sun rise every single morning, regardless of our human actions. I can trust in a God who's faithful. I can trust in that God because that God stays true to his good character, even when we as humans don't stay true to good character ourselves. I can trust in that. And I just stopped worrying. Worrying literally does nothing. I realized that if I worry, that still doesn't change anything, because all it does is probably spike up my blood pressure. And after I'm done worrying, the problem is still there. So now the problem is still there, and now I've got hypertension. It doesn't solve anything. And another way I looked at it is, say I do worry about something, right? And it doesn't happen. Then I'm worried for nothing, right? I've gotten myself in a sweat and I've cried and I've worried for nothing, right? But then say the worst case scenario does happen. I've worried for nothing, because even in those circumstances, I may hate every single moment of it. I may not like anything about it, but God is faithful and he's going to carry me through. And so that's what I live by now. I have finally understood what the Bible meant when it says to be anxious for nothing. It says in Philippians 4 verse 6 through 7, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And so I finally get it. It's because, one, God is faithful, right? But it's like, if you worry and the thing doesn't happen, great. You've worried for nothing, and you've, got high blood pressure, and you've cried for nothing, and now you're stressed. You've added all this stress for nothing. But on the flip side, if you do worry and it does happen, you've still worried for nothing, because God is going to get you through. I'm not saying you're going to like it. It's not going to be pleasant. But he is going to sustain you, even to the point of death, even to the point of immense pain and suffering. Like I said, not that I'm going to like it, but he has conquered death. And because of Christ, who died on the cross, I know I'm going to be okay. Not that I'm going to be happy or enjoy the suffering, but that he is my rock in the suffering. So I just want to encourage you, if you're going through anything and you're struggling to trust God, or you're worried about something. And I do want to clarify, there's a difference between concern and worry. Like, we should be concerned about things. Like, if something is bothering you or you're worried about something, like I said, change what you can. But I'm saying for the things that you can't change, and that's a lot of things, don't worry about it. You know what I mean? For instance, let's take this example. Say you got a flat tire. You could look at your flat tire and start getting in a panic and be like, oh my gosh, I have a flat tire. Or, right, you can get stressed out and get your blood pressure up over this flat tire. Or you can say, you know what, that's unfortunate, I got a flat tire, and do something about it. And like, go call AAA or whatever you got to do. You know what I mean? Put the spare on. Like, I'm not saying don't take action to, solve solvable problems, but I am saying if you get that flat tire, don't worry, don't add stress by worrying about it too. So I'm not saying don't have natural human feelings, but don't add anxiety to it by worrying about it. Instead, trust God that if you get the flat tire, He's going to provide a spare. He's going to provide someone to help you. He's going to make a way. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I really, truly do hope this helps someone to trust God, not just because He's God, right? I mean, that is the reason, but it's because He's a God who's faithful, right? Regardless of our actions, of our inconsistencies, of our shortcomings, of all the ways we fail God never fails us. He is always faithful. He makes the sun rise every single morning. He provides for us. And I just want to let this be an encouragement to someone out there that God's got you. And the situation may not be pleasant. You may dread every bit of it, but He is your rock. He is trustworthy. Do not worry. Take care.